In the far reaches of the eastern grasslands, nestled among hills veiled in mist and stories older than time, lay Nyambel, a village where history breathed through the soil and shadows. As the sun dipped below the horizon, it cast gold and blood-red light over the clay huts, the weary fields, and the sacred baobab tree that towered at the heart of it all. Nyambel wasn't merely a village, it was a memory wrapped in earth and silence. And under that silence, something old stirred. Beneath the colossal roots of the baobab, entwined like the fingers of ancestors guarding a secret, lay the bone flute, an object so feared that its name was no longer spoken aloud. Carved from the femur of a being that once walked between gods and men, it hummed when touched by moonlight, though no wind stirred. Elders had buried it with blood, ash, and chants. It was never meant to sing again. Imani was a girl of questions. Where others saw trees, she saw ancient bones. Where others heard birds, she imagined voices of the past. Her fingers moved quickly across the page, sketching the twisted roots she'd drawn 100 times, and yet each time they whispered something new. The villagers called her strange. Her grandmother called her marked. Imani didn't believe in curses, until the ground beneath her hand began to tremble. Without warning, the ground groaned, a low, guttural sound, like a wounded beast. A fracture shot through the red soil, splitting the earth at Imani's feet. From the depths rose a breath of wind that smelled of old rain, fire, and bone. Her sketchbook flew from her hands as she stumbled backward. The baobab tree, ancient and unmoving for generations, shuddered. And then, from the crevice, something pulsed with light. The bone flute was waking. Curiosity burned hotter than fear. Imani leaned into the crack, heart thundering like the drums of festival nights. Her fingers brushed against the flute, cold, yet alive. It pulsed like something breathing, something waiting. The moment her skin met bone, visions poured into her mind, warring tribes, skies on fire, screams echoing through time. She pulled her hand away, but it was too late. The flute knew her now. In her dream, Nyambel burned. Flames licked the sky, twisting into ghostly forms that sang songs in tongues never taught. The baobab tree split like paper, and from its hollow core emerged a faceless spirit playing the flute. In the midst of the chaos stood Imani, unharmed, unmoved, bone flute in hand. The villagers screamed, but their words melted into wind. She awoke with a taste of smoke in her mouth and the memory of music that had never been played. The elders gathered beneath the blood moon, their faces painted with ash and ochre. None spoke at first. They simply listened, to the air, to the fire, to the bones buried beneath their feet. Finally, Old Mshale whispered, "It breathes again." Panic flared in the group, buried beneath years of ritual and silence. They had bound the flute with 7 songs of sealing. But the 8th, the final song, the girl, had broken it. Compelled by forces she couldn't name, Imani slipped into the forest's heart. The air was thick, watching. She raised the flute to her lips and blew. The note that emerged was not of this world, it bent sound, bent time. Trees leaned in as if in reverence or fear. The note rang out across the sky, waking something in the mountains, in the rivers, in the hearts of the dead. Her breath had become a summoning. The dead rose, not as flesh, but as memory, shaped by grief and unfinished stories. They climbed from riverbeds, slid from the cracks of termite mounds, unfurled from fig leaves. Some cried. Some sang. Some stood still, waiting. All turned their faces toward Nyambel. Toward the one who called. The world had not forgotten them. And now, they had returned. When Imani returned, silence followed her like a shadow. The flute dangled from her neck, still humming. Children cried. Mothers pulled their kin close. One elder shouted, "You've damned us." Another fell to their knees and whispered, "She's the one." Imani stood frozen. She hadn't meant to awaken the old things. But deep down, a part of her had always wanted to know what lay beneath the songs of silence. That night, Imani knelt beside the stream to rinse her face, desperate to feel normal again. But the reflection that stared back was not entirely hers. Her eyes, once deep brown, now shimmered faintly with white fire. Ancient markings, like those worn by warriors of long-forgotten clans, traced her arms and collarbone. She didn't remember painting them. She reached out to touch the water, but it rippled before her fingers met it, as if afraid. The flute was not merely an object, it was becoming part of her. By dusk, the village knew. Wherever Imani went, shadows followed. Spirits walked behind her like silent guardians, or prisoners. They didn't speak, nor moan, nor shriek. They simply were. Transparent warriors, grieving mothers, half-formed children with eyes like galaxies. They tread where she tread. Her steps stitched the fabric between the living and the dead. She no longer belonged to either world. The songkeeper was the last of the old ones who remembered the ninth tone. She lived at the edge of memory, where songs turned to whispers and names were forbidden. Imani came to her seeking answers. The eighth tone wakes the dead, the songkeeper rasped. But the ninth opens the gate between the worlds. Forever. Her sightless eyes turned toward the sky. You must not play it, child. Even the gods fled from that song. Her grandmother's voice trembled like old drums left in the rain. You were born with the rhythm of the old ones, she whispered. From beneath a reed mat, she pulled a faded cloth bundle, inside, parchment etched with flute notations and prayers in forgotten tongue. Your father played the flute once. It burned him from the inside. Her voice cracked. We swore it would end with him. But the flute chose again. The air had grown too heavy for breath. The birds no longer sang. Then, on the fourth evening after the flute's awakening, the sky fractured. Thin, jagged lines of light spread across the heavens like veins of a bleeding god. No storm came. No thunder. Just the sound of something old shifting beneath the surface of reality. The veil between worlds was thinning. Niam Bel no longer belonged only to the living. He came at twilight, when her breath was still and the earth listened. A tall spirit, draped in robes woven from moonlight, appeared beside her fire. He did not move. He did not blink. But his words filled her mind like thunder. Finish the song. And the forgetting. She fell to her knees, overwhelmed. Her ancestors had waited centuries to speak again. And she was their only voice. Beneath the thunderless sky, Imani stood tall above the roots where it all began. The villagers pleaded. The elders prayed. The spirits wept in silence. She held the flute aloft, and the world seemed to lean in, waiting. She knew what the ninth tone meant. She knew it would change everything, forever. But some truths must be sung. With a deep breath, she placed the flute to her lips. And played. Beneath the thunderless sky, Imani stood tall above the roots where it all began. The villagers pleaded. The elders prayed. The spirits wept in silence. She held the flute aloft, and the world seemed to lean in, waiting. She knew what the ninth tone meant. She knew it would change everything, forever. But some truths must be sung. With a deep breath, she placed the flute to her lips. And played. The song took from her everything. As the final note vanished into the soil, Imani fell like a leaf in winter. The flute cracked beside her, its duty fulfilled. The spirits had gone, some home, some onward. The villagers gathered, silent. No one touched her. They watched her chest rise slowly. A new breath. A new girl. Not a god. Not a ghost. But a bridge. With the song sung, peace returned, not the same peace, but one stitched with memory. The baobab tree sprouted new leaves, green as rebirth. The soil grew warm again. Children laughed under skies healed of cracks. Elders told stories with tears in their eyes, and the dead were honored not with fear, but with songs. Niam Bel had survived. Not because it had forgotten, but because it had remembered. When she awoke, it was with no visions, no voices. Just light. Gentle, golden, like forgiveness. Her fingers felt numb. The flute was gone. Her grandmother held her hand, not saying a word. Imani looked at the ceiling of her hut and wept, not out of sorrow, but because she had returned. She was still here. Still whole. And something new was growing inside her. Peace. They didn't call her a savior. They didn't call her a witch. They called her by name. Imani. The one who remembered. The one who sang. Around her, they sang songs from old tongues, their rhythms reborn in joy. Children mimicked her flute with reeds, dancing like shadows in firelight. And she smiled. Not because they praised her, but because they understood. Life returned with quiet miracles. In the eastern hut, a child was born under the new moon. Her cry sounded like a high, sweet note. On her chest, just beneath her collarbone, a mark shaped like a flute pulsed faintly. The cycle had not ended, it had shifted. The gift, the burden, the story would return one day. But for now, there was rest. She became not a leader, but a storyteller. The children gathered around her beneath the healing baobab, where she etched ancient symbols into dirt and sand. She told them of spirits, not to scare, but to remember. She spoke of the bone flute not as a curse, but as a song waiting for a singer brave enough to listen. And they listened, not out of fear, but fascination. And one morning, without warning, Imani walked into the trees. She left no flute behind, only memories. Some say she vanished. Others say she walked still, listening for songs no one else can hear. But the village remembers. And so long as it remembers, she is not gone. She is the echo in the wind. The pause between drumbeats. the girl who played the ninth tone, and rewrote the ending.